"You're embarrassing the family," my mother hissed, uninviting me from my sister's graduation. "We told everyone you're traveling." 6 months later, she called sobbing. "The bank is foreclosing." I replied, "I'm traveling to your house." She gasped when she saw who was with me. The sound of my mother's voice still echoes in my mind sometimes, that cold, calculated tone she used when she wanted to cut deep. "You're embarrassing the family, Sarah. We've decided it's best if you don't come to Rebecca's graduation." Just like that, 25 years of being her daughter meant nothing. Hey everyone, I'm Sarah, and I'm 28 now. Before I dive into this story, I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below, and if you've ever felt like the black sheep in your family, hit that like button. This story is for anyone who's ever been made to feel like they don't belong in their own family. And please, subscribe if you want to hear more stories about standing up for yourself, because that's exactly what this is about. Let me paint you a picture of my family dynamics, because understanding this is crucial to everything that follows. I grew up as the middle child between my older brother Marcus and younger sister Rebecca. But in my family, I might as well have been invisible. My parents, Linda and Robert, had this unspoken hierarchy that I never quite understood as a kid, but became crystal clear as an adult. Rebecca was the golden child, the baby, the princess, the one who could do no wrong. She was artistic, dramatic, and had this way of making everything about her that my parents absolutely adored. Marcus was the firstborn son, the heir apparent to my father's construction business, the one who carried the family name. And then there was me, the responsible one, the one who cleaned up everyone's messes, the one who was expected to sacrifice without question. Growing up, I was the one who helped Rebecca with her homework, while she complained about how boring school was. I was the one who covered for Marcus when he came home drunk in high school. I was the one who worked part-time jobs to buy my own clothes and school supplies, while my siblings got everything handed to them. When Rebecca wanted to quit her part-time job at 16 because it was too hard, guess who picked up extra shifts to help cover her car insurance? Me. My parents always justified this by saying I was the strong one and more capable of handling responsibility. What they really meant was that I was disposable. I was the one they could count on to bend, to sacrifice, to disappear when convenient. This pattern continued into adulthood. When Marcus needed money for his wedding, I co-signed a loan. When Rebecca wanted to pursue her art career, instead of working, I helped pay her rent for 6 months. When my parents needed help with their mortgage during Dad's medical leave, I gave them my entire savings account, $15,000 I'd been saving for years. But here's what really set the stage for everything that happened. I had always been different from them. While they were content with small-town life, I had bigger dreams. I'd put myself through college working multiple jobs, graduated with honors in business administration, and slowly built my career in real estate development. By the time I was 26, I was making more money than anyone else in my family, but they still treated me like I was that awkward teenager who didn't quite fit in. The thing is, I had started keeping my success to myself. Every time I'd share good news, a promotion, a successful deal, recognition at work, it was either ignored or somehow turned into something negative. "Don't get too big for your britches," Mom would say, or Dad would make some comment about how money changes people. So I learned to keep my achievements quiet, to downplay my success, to make myself smaller so they'd be more comfortable. Rebecca, meanwhile, had graduated college with a fine arts degree and was working as a part-time barista while pursuing her artistic vision. My parents treated this like she was the next Picasso. Every coffee shop shift was gaining life experience. Every amateur art show was following her passion. The double standard was suffocating. Then came the announcement that would change everything. Rebecca was finally graduating with her master's degree in art therapy, a program my parents had paid for entirely while I'd paid my own way through everything. The graduation ceremony was set for May 15th, and my mother called me with the details. "It's going to be such a special day," she gushed over the phone. "We're having a big celebration dinner afterward at Chez Laurent, the fanciest restaurant in our small town. The whole extended family is coming. Aunt Carol is driving down from Denver, Uncle Mike is flying in from Phoenix. It's going to be Rebecca's day to shine." I was genuinely happy for Rebecca. Despite our family dynamics, I loved my sister, and I was proud that she'd finished her degree. I immediately started planning. I'd need to take time off work, drive the 4 hours back to my hometown, get a nice gift. I was actually looking forward to it. That's what makes what happened next so devastating. 2 weeks before the graduation, I called my mom to confirm the restaurant reservation time. The conversation started normally enough, but then she got this tone, that careful, measured tone she used when she was about to deliver bad news she'd already decided I had no say in. "Actually, Sarah, we need to talk about the graduation," she said. I could hear the television in the background and Dad's voice asking who was on the phone. "It's Sarah," she said to him, and I heard him grunt in response. "What about it?" I asked, already feeling a knot forming in my stomach. "Well, Rebecca has been thinking, and we've been talking as a family." The phrase, as a family, excluding me, apparently. "And we think it might be better if you don't come." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What do you mean, don't come? It's my sister's graduation." You're in such a different place in your life right now, Sarah. You're so focused on your career, so busy with your city life. Rebecca feels like you look down on her choices, and she wants her graduation day to be positive and supportive." I was stunned into silence. Look down on her choices? I had literally paid for her groceries for months while she found herself artistically. "Mom, I've never said anything negative about Rebecca's choices. I've been nothing but supportive." "It's not what you say, Sarah. It's your attitude, the way you act like you're above all of us now. Rebecca just wants to be surrounded by people who truly understand and appreciate her journey." The knife twisted deeper. I understand her journey. I've supported her journey, financially and emotionally. "That's exactly what I'm talking about." Mom's voice turned sharp. "You always bring up money. You make everything about what you've done for everyone else. It's exhausting, frankly." I felt like I was drowning. They were rewriting history, making my support into some kind of burden I'd imposed on them. "Besides," Mom continued, "we've already told everyone you're traveling for work. Uncle Mike asked specifically about you, and we said you had some big business trip you couldn't get out of. It's already handled." They had already decided. They had already lied to the extended family about why I wouldn't be there. They had planned my exclusion and were now just informing me of their decision. "Mom, this is my sister's graduation. I'm family." "Of course you're family, Sarah. Don't be dramatic. You can celebrate with Rebecca another time, in your own way. Maybe take her to dinner when things calm down." The casual dismissal in her voice broke something inside me. I wasn't being dramatic, I was being erased. "What does Rebecca say about this?" I asked, hoping against hope that this was just my parents' decision. There was a pause. "Rebecca agrees it's for the best. She doesn't want any tension on her special day." And there it was. My sister, whom I'd supported through everything, whom I'd defended when our parents criticized her unconventional choices, whom I'd helped financially and emotionally for years, she wanted me gone too. I hung up the phone and cried for 3 hours straight. Not just because I was hurt, but because I finally understood the truth I'd been avoiding my whole life. I wasn't really part of this family. I was a supporting character in their story, useful when they needed something, disposable when they didn't. But after the tears came something else, anger. Pure, righteous anger at being treated like I didn't matter. At being made to feel grateful for scraps of affection from people who should have loved me unconditionally. I called my best friend Jake, who'd been trying to get me to see my family's toxicity for years. "They uninvited you from Rebecca's graduation?" His voice was incredulous. "Sarah, that's not normal family behavior. That's cruel." "Maybe they're right, though," I said, still caught in the patterns of self-doubt they'd trained into me. "Maybe I do act like I'm better than them." "Stop," Jake said firmly. "You've bent over backward for these people your entire adult life. You've given them money, time, energy, support, and they're punishing you for being successful. They're embarrassed by your success, Sarah. That says everything about them and nothing about you." Jake helped me see what I couldn't see clearly in my pain. This wasn't about protecting Rebecca's special day. This was about my family's discomfort with the fact that I'd outgrown the role they'd assigned me. I was supposed to be the responsible one who sacrificed quietly. I wasn't supposed to become more successful than they were. I wasn't supposed to have a life that made their choices look small by comparison. Over the next week, I did something I'd never done before. I talked to people outside my immediate family about what had happened. I called my cousin Emma, Uncle Mike's daughter, who'd always been kind to me at family gatherings. "Wait, you're not coming to Rebecca's graduation?" Emma was confused. "Your mom told everyone you were traveling for some huge work thing. She made it sound like you were closing some massive deal and couldn't reschedule." So they hadn't just uninvited me, they'd created an elaborate story about my absence that actually made me sound important and successful. The irony was suffocating. "Something like that," I said, not ready to expose the whole truth. "That's too bad. I was looking forward to hearing about your job. Mom said you're doing really well in real estate." This conversation was a revelation. The extended family actually respected and were curious about my success. It was only my immediate family who saw it as a threat. I also called my old college roommate Maya, who'd become a therapist. Without going into all the details, I described the family dynamics and asked if this was normal. "Sarah," she said gently, "what you're describing sounds like a family system where you've been cast as the scapegoat. You're successful, which threatens their established hierarchy, so they're rejecting you to maintain their comfort zone. The graduation is just the excuse." Her professional perspective gave me clarity I desperately needed. This wasn't about me being difficult or embarrassing. This was about them being unable to handle my growth. The graduation day came and went. I spent it at my apartment, working on a major development deal that would later become one of my biggest successes. I didn't call, didn't send a card, didn't acknowledge it at all. For the first time in my life, I didn't perform the emotional labor of keeping peace in my family. A week later, Rebecca called. "Why didn't you at least text me congratulations?" she asked, sounding hurt. "I was traveling for work, remember?" I said coldly. "Isn't that what you told everyone?" There was a long pause. "Sarah, don't be like this. You know we wanted you there, but—" "But what, Rebecca? But I'm an embarrassment. But I act like I'm better than everyone. But my presence would have ruined your special day." "That's not, you're twisting everything." "I'm not twisting anything. You and Mom and Dad decided I didn't belong there, so I didn't belong there." Message received. "You're being dramatic." There was that word again, dramatic. Anytime I expressed hurt or set a boundary, I was being dramatic. "No, Rebecca, I'm being clear. You uninvited me from your graduation because you were embarrassed by me. Own it or don't, but don't call me dramatic for responding accordingly." She hung up on me. For the next few months, I threw myself into work with an intensity I'd never had before. The pain of my family's rejection fueled a drive to succeed that surprised even me. I closed 3 major deals in 4 months, earned 2 promotions, and started making the kind of money that would have seemed impossible a year earlier. But more importantly, I started building what I now call my chosen family. Jake had always been there, but I started deepening other friendships too. My colleague David became a close friend and mentor. I joined a professional women's group where I met Lisa, who became like a sister to me. I started dating someone who actually celebrated my success instead of being threatened by it. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who saw my achievements as reasons to be proud, not embarrassed. People who supported my goals instead of minimizing them. People who showed up for me the way I'd always shown up for others. I also started therapy with Dr. Martinez, who helped me understand the family patterns I'd been trapped in my entire life. "You've been trained to believe that your worth comes from what you can do for others," she explained. "But healthy relationships are reciprocal. Love shouldn't require you to make yourself smaller." Through therapy, I learned about boundaries, something I'd never been allowed to have in my family. I learned that saying no wasn't selfish. I learned that I didn't owe anyone access to my success or my emotional energy just because we shared DNA. The months passed, and my life transformed in ways I couldn't have imagined. I bought my first house, a beautiful townhouse in the city with a view of the river. I got promoted to senior development manager. I took vacations without feeling guilty. I dated someone who was proud to introduce me to his friends and family. Meanwhile, my biological family had gone quiet. No calls asking for money or favors. No requests for help with various crises. No invitations to gatherings I might embarrass them at. The silence was initially painful, but gradually became peaceful. Then, 6 months after Rebecca's graduation, my phone rang at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. It was Mom, and she was crying. "Sarah, thank God you answered," she sobbed. "We need your help. We need you to come home right away." The desperation in her voice was unlike anything I'd ever heard from her. My mother was a proud woman who rarely showed vulnerability, and she was falling apart. "What's wrong?" I asked, though I kept my voice neutral. The old me would have immediately started planning how to fix whatever crisis had occurred. The new me stayed calm and gathered information first. "It's the house, Sarah. The bank is foreclosing. We got the final notice yesterday, and we have 30 days to come up with $47,000 or we lose everything." I sat down heavily. How did this happen? "Your father's been out of work for 3 months. His back surgery never healed right, and the company let him go. Rebecca's been helping when she can, but her therapy practice is just getting started, and Marcus." She trailed off. "What about Marcus?" "His business failed. The construction company went under last month. He's filing for bankruptcy." The golden boy, the heir apparent, had crashed and burned. And now they needed the family embarrassment to save them. "Mom, I'm sorry this is happening, but I don't understand why you're calling me. You made it very clear that I'm not really part of this family anymore." "Don't say that, Sarah. You're our daughter. We love you." "Do you? Because 6 months ago, you were too embarrassed by me to let me attend my own sister's graduation." That was different. This is an emergency." "It was an emergency then too, Mom. An emergency of your own making. You emergency deleted me from the family when it was convenient." She was crying harder now. "Please, Sarah, I know we handled things badly, but we're desperate. If we lose the house, we have nowhere to go. Your father's health is so bad, and the stress is killing him." Part of me, the old, trained part, wanted to immediately start problem solving. To ask about their mortgage terms, their income, their options. To figure out how I could help, how I could fix this, how I could sacrifice once again to save them. But Dr. Martinez's voice was in my head. "You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm." "I'm sorry you're going through this," I said carefully. "Have you looked into loan modification programs? There are resources for people facing foreclosure." "We've tried everything. The bank won't work with us anymore. Sarah, you're the only one who can help us. You're doing so well now, and we just need." "How do you know how I'm doing?" I interrupted. "You haven't spoken to me in 6 months. You told the whole family I was too busy with my important job to come to Rebecca's graduation, but you never actually asked about my job. You never asked about my life. We heard from people that you bought a house, that you got promoted." "From what people?" "Emma mentioned it, and your Aunt Carol saw something on your LinkedIn." So they'd been monitoring my success from a distance, tracking my progress without actually being part of it. Keeping tabs on my financial situation for exactly this moment. "Mom, I need to think about this. This is a big request, and our relationship is complicated right now." "There's no time to think, Sarah. We need an answer today. The bank wants a payment plan by tomorrow, or they proceed with the foreclosure." The urgency was designed to pressure me, to force me back into my old role as the family fixer. But I'd learned to recognize manipulation, even when it came wrapped in genuine crisis. "Then you need to figure out another solution for today," I said. "I'll call you back when I've had time to process this." "Sarah, please." I hung up. I immediately called Dr. Martinez for an emergency session. She helped me work through the situation and my feelings about it. "How do you feel about the possibility of helping them?" she asked. Conflicted. Part of me wants to write the check and solve their problem. But I'm also angry that the only time they reach out is when they need something. and I'm scared that if I help them, nothing will actually change. What would helping them accomplish for you? It would solve their immediate crisis. It would probably make them grateful, at least temporarily. It would put me back in the role of the responsible one who saves everyone. And what would that cost you? My boundaries, my self-respect, and probably my money if I'm being honest. This wouldn't be a loan, it would be a gift I'd never see again, just like every other time. What would not helping them accomplish? It would maintain the boundaries I've worked so hard to establish. It would send the message that they can't treat me like garbage and then expect me to rescue them. But it would also mean they might lose their house. Sarah, you didn't create this crisis. You're not responsible for fixing it. The question is, what choice allows you to maintain your integrity and your emotional well-being? That night, I called Jake and Lisa for their perspectives. Both were adamant that I shouldn't give my family money. They burned this bridge, Jake said. You don't get to exclude someone from the family and then demand they save the family when convenient. Lisa, who'd grown up in a similarly dysfunctional family, was even more direct. This is exactly how toxic families operate. They push you away when they don't need you, then love bomb you when they do. If you give them money now, you're teaching them that this behavior works. I spent 3 days thinking it through. I imagined different scenarios. Giving them the money, not giving them the money, giving them part of the money with conditions. I thought about what each choice would mean for my future relationship with them and my relationship with myself. Finally, I knew what I had to do. I called my mother back. I've thought about your situation, I said, and I've made a decision. Oh, thank God, she breathed. How much can you give us? The full amount would be amazing, but even half would. Mom, I'm not giving you money. Silence. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not writing you a check. I'm not co-signing a loan. I'm not financially bailing you out of this situation. But Sarah will lose the house. That's a possibility, yes. How can you be so cold? We're your family. Am I? Because 6 months ago, when I wanted nothing more than to celebrate my sister's achievement and be part of our family, you told me I was an embarrassment. You uninvited me from a family gathering and lied about why I wasn't there. That was different. No, it wasn't different. It was exactly the same pattern that's been happening my entire life. I'm family when you need something from me. I'm an embarrassment when you don't. Sarah, please, your father is sick, Rebecca is struggling, Marcus has nothing. And whose fault is that, Mom? I didn't make Dad take out loans he couldn't afford. I didn't make Marcus start a business without proper planning. I didn't make Rebecca choose a career path that doesn't pay well. These are consequences of their choices. So you're just going to abandon us? I'm going to do exactly what you did to me, prioritize the relationships that are healthy and reciprocal. I'm going to focus on the people who treat me with respect and kindness consistently, not just when they need something. She was crying again. I don't understand how you became so selfish. I learned it from you, Mom. I learned to prioritize my own needs by watching you prioritize yours. The difference is that you taught me it was wrong when I did it. I paused, then continued with something I'd been practicing with Dr. Martinez. If you want a relationship with me moving forward, it needs to be built on mutual respect. That means no more calling me only when you need money. No more making me feel guilty for my success. No more excluding me from family events because I make you uncomfortable. I'm willing to rebuild our relationship on healthier terms, but I'm not willing to go back to being your emergency ATM. You're destroying this family, she said through her tears. No, Mom, I'm refusing to participate in the destruction of myself. I hung up and immediately blocked their numbers. Not permanently, but I needed space to think without being bombarded by guilt and manipulation. Over the next week, I got messages through social media, emails to my work account, and calls from extended family members who'd been recruited to guilt me into helping. Uncle Mike called to tell me I was disappointing the family. Aunt Carol sent a long email about the importance of forgiveness and family loyalty. But something interesting happened. Not everyone pressured me. Emma, Uncle Mike's daughter, actually reached out to support me. I heard about what happened with Rebecca's graduation. she said. I always thought that story about you traveling didn't make sense. You would never miss something that important. They uninvited me, I said simply. That's awful, Sarah. I'm so sorry. And now they want you to give them money. $47,000. Jesus, and they're making you the bad guy for not just handing it over. Pretty much. Well, for what it's worth, I think you're handling this exactly right. They can't treat you like garbage and then expect you to solve their problems. Having support from someone in the extended family meant more than I could have imagined. It confirmed that the problem wasn't me. It was the toxic dynamic my immediate family had created and maintained. 2 weeks after I'd refused to give them money, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Rebecca. The bank gave us an extension, she said without preamble. We have another month to figure this out. That's good news, I said neutrally. Sarah, I need you to know that I never wanted to exclude you from my graduation. That was Mom and Dad's idea. But you agreed to it. Yes, but I regretted it immediately. I kept looking for you at the ceremony, forgetting that you weren't going to be there. This was the closest she'd ever come to an apology, but it still fell short of taking real responsibility. Rebecca, I appreciate you telling me that, but the damage was already done. You chose them over me when it mattered. Can't we just move past this? We're family. We can move past it when you acknowledge what actually happened and commit to doing better. Until then, we don't have a relationship to move past. She was quiet for a long time. I don't know how to fix this. Start by telling the truth about what happened. Stop making excuses. Take responsibility for your choices. Then we can talk about rebuilding trust. And will you help us with the house? There it was, the real reason for her call. My relationship with you and my financial decisions are separate things, Rebecca. I'm not giving the family money regardless of what happens between us personally. So you're really going to let us lose everything? You're really going to lose everything if you don't find another solution. I'm not your solution. A month later, I heard through Emma that my parents had sold the house to avoid foreclosure. They'd moved into a small apartment across town, and my father had started collecting disability benefits. Rebecca had moved back in with them temporarily while building her therapy practice. Marcus was living with his in-laws while going through bankruptcy proceedings. It was a hard landing, but they'd survived. More importantly, they'd been forced to face the consequences of their financial decisions without using me as a safety net. 6 months after that phone call, a full year after Rebecca's graduation, I got a letter in the mail. It was from my father, handwritten in his careful script. Dear Sarah, it began. I've been thinking a lot about what happened with our family, and I owe you an apology. Not just for the graduation, but for years of taking you for granted. You were always the one we counted on to be strong, to help out, to fix things. We never appreciated what that cost you, and we never gave you the same support you gave us. I understand now why you couldn't give us money for the house. It wasn't about the money, it was about respect. We hadn't earned the right to ask for your help because we hadn't treated you like family when you needed us to. I don't know if you're willing to try rebuilding our relationship, but I want you to know that I'm proud of you. I'm proud of your success, your independence, and your strength in standing up for yourself. I should have said that years ago. If you're open to it, I'd like to take you to dinner sometime. Not to ask for anything, but to listen to you and try to understand the person you've become. I realize I don't really know you as an adult, and that's my loss. Love, Dad. I cried when I read it, not from sadness, but from relief. It was the first time in my life that my father had acknowledged my worth as a person, not just as a problem solver. I waited a week before responding. I wanted to make sure my reply came from a thoughtful place, not an emotional reaction. Dear Dad, I wrote back. Thank you for your letter. It means more than you know to have you acknowledge what happened and to hear that you're proud of me. I would be open to having dinner and talking, but I need you to understand that rebuilding our relationship will take time. Trust was broken, and trust takes time to repair. I'm willing to try if you're willing to be patient with the process. I also need you to know that my boundaries around money and family obligations haven't changed. I won't be anyone's financial safety net going forward, but I'm hopeful that we can build a relationship based on mutual respect and genuine care for each other. Let me know when you'd like to have that dinner. Love, Sarah. We met 3 weeks later at a quiet restaurant downtown. It was awkward at first. We were essentially strangers trying to figure out how to be father and daughter. But something had shifted in him. He asked about my job, my house, my relationships. He listened when I talked instead of waiting for his turn to speak. He didn't ask for anything. I never understood how lonely you must have been growing up, he said toward the end of our meal. Always being the responsible one, always having to be strong. That wasn't fair to put on a kid. I just wanted to belong, I admitted. I wanted to feel like I mattered to you guys. You did matter. You always mattered. We just didn't know how to show it without taking advantage of it. It wasn't a magic fix. We didn't suddenly have a perfect father-daughter relationship, but it was a beginning. Over the next few months, we had regular dinners. Sometimes Mom joined us, though she struggled more with acknowledging her role in the family dysfunction. Rebecca and I started texting occasionally, surface-level stuff about work and weather, but it was contact. Marcus, interestingly, never reached out. I think his pride was too wounded by his business failure and my success. That was his choice to make. The real transformation, though, wasn't in my biological family relationships. It was in my understanding of what family actually means. My chosen family, Jake, Lisa, David, my partner Michael, whom I'd been dating for 8 months by then, they showed up for me consistently. When I got promoted to director level, they threw me a surprise party. When I was stressed about a difficult project, they checked in on me. When I had the flu, Lisa brought me soup and stayed to watch movies. For my 29th birthday, they organized a weekend trip to the mountains. As we sat around the campfire on the last night, Lisa raised her beer and said, "To Sarah, for showing us all what it looks like to value yourself enough to demand better." To chosen family, Jake added, "Which is the best kind of family?" To boundaries, David said with a grin, "Which are apparently magical." Michael squeezed my hand, "To the bravest person I know." Looking around at their faces in the firelight, I realized I'd never felt more loved or more at home. These people celebrated my success instead of resenting it. They supported my dreams instead of minimizing them. They showed up for me consistently instead of only when they needed something. That night, I called Dr. Martinez from my tent. Yes, I had cell service. We weren't that hardcore about camping. "I think I finally understand what you meant about healthy relationships," I told her. "What's that?" "They don't require you to be less than you are. The right people want you to be fully yourself." "How does that feel?" "Like coming home." A year and a half after Rebecca's graduation, I was promoted to Vice President of Development, the youngest person in my company's history to reach that level. The celebration party was held at the same upscale hotel where I'd imagined attending Rebecca's graduation dinner. My chosen family was there. Jake flew in from Seattle where he'd moved for his own job promotion. Lisa brought her new girlfriend, whom she'd met through our professional women's group. David brought his teenage daughter, who wanted to meet the badass lady executive he'd told her about. Michael was there with flowers and a bottle of champagne that probably cost more than my first car. My father came too. We'd been rebuilding our relationship slowly, and when I'd invited him, he'd teared up. "I'm so proud of you, honey, and I'm grateful you're letting me be part of your success this time." Mom had wanted to come, but I wasn't ready for that yet. Our relationship was more complicated, and I was learning not to rush healing for the sake of appearances. As I looked around the room at all these people who genuinely cared about me and celebrated my achievements, I thought about how different my life might have been if I'd kept trying to earn love from people who were determined not to give it. The old me would have downplayed this promotion, would have made it smaller so other people would be more comfortable. The new me gave a speech about hard work and supportive relationships and believing in yourself even when others don't. 2 years ago, I told the room, I learned a hard lesson about family. I learned that blood doesn't automatically create loyalty. and that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally are the ones who place the most conditions on that love. I looked at my father, who nodded encouragingly. But I also learned that family isn't just about who you're related to, it's about who shows up for you, who celebrates your victories and supports you through challenges, who wants you to be the fullest version of yourself instead of asking you to be smaller for their comfort. I raised my glass. To chosen family, to boundaries, and to the radical act of believing you deserve better. The applause was thunderous. Later that night, as Michael and I walked to our car, he asked, "Do you ever regret not giving your parents the money for the house?" I thought about it carefully. No, that crisis forced all of us to grow. They had to face the consequences of their financial decisions instead of using me as an escape hatch. And I had to learn that love without respect isn't really love at all. What about your relationship with them now? It's complicated. Dad and I are building something new, something healthier. It might never be what I wanted as a kid, but it's honest. Mom and I, we'll see, and my siblings are adults who can decide for themselves what kind of relationship they want with me. And if they don't choose a relationship with you, then that's their loss. I know my worth now. I know what real love looks like. I'm not going back to begging for scraps from people who should be offering me a feast. 6 months later, Rebecca called me. Not asking for money, not making excuses, just calling to talk. "I saw the article about your promotion in the business journal," she said. "Vice president at 29. That's incredible, Sarah." "Thank you," I said, genuinely surprised by the warmth in her voice. "I need to tell you something," she continued. "I've been in therapy for the past year, working through a lot of family stuff, and I realized I owe you a real apology, not the half-hearted one I gave you before." I sat down, not sure what to expect. "I was jealous of you," she said simply. "Your success, your independence, the way you seemed to have it all figured out. When Mom and Dad suggested you not come to my graduation, part of me was relieved because I wouldn't have to face that comparison on my day." The honesty in her voice was something I'd never heard from her before. "But I realize now that I wasn't seeing you clearly. You weren't trying to overshadow me, you were just living your life. And you'd been nothing but supportive of me, even when I didn't deserve it. I let my insecurity and Mom and Dad's toxicity convince me that you were the problem, when really I was just afraid of not measuring up." "Rebecca," I started, but she continued. "I know I can't undo what happened. I know saying sorry doesn't fix the damage, but I want you to know that I see it clearly now. What we did to you was wrong. What I did was wrong. And I understand if you can't forgive me." For the first time in our adult lives, my sister was taking full responsibility for her actions without making excuses or shifting blame. "I appreciate you saying that," I told her. "It means a lot to hear you acknowledge what really happened." "Can I ask you something?" she said. "How did you get so strong? How did you learn to stand up for yourself like that?" "Therapy," I said honestly. "And hitting rock bottom emotionally. Sometimes you have to lose everything to figure out what actually matters." "I'm proud of you," she said quietly. "I should have said that years ago, but I'm saying it now. I'm proud of who you've become." We talked for another hour, really talked, maybe for the first time ever. She told me about her therapy practice, which was actually doing well. She'd specialized in family trauma, which made sense given our history. I told her about my work, my relationship with Michael, the life I'd built. "Would you maybe want to have coffee sometime?" she asked before we hung up. "No pressure, and I understand if you're not ready, but I'd like to try being sisters again if you're open to it." "I'd like that," I said and meant it. We met 2 weeks later at a small cafe downtown. It was tentative at first, but gradually we found a rhythm. She asked about my work with genuine interest. I asked about her therapy practice and her art. We avoided talking about Mom and Marcus, but we talked about Dad and how he was trying to change. "He asks about you all the time," she said. "He keeps articles about your company in his wallet. I think he's finally figured out what he lost when he didn't support you before." "We're rebuilding," I said, slowly. "What about Mom?" I sipped my coffee thoughtfully. "Mom's having a harder time. She still calls me dramatic when I set boundaries. She still thinks I should just move past what happened without anyone actually changing their behavior. She's scared, Rebecca said. Scared that she destroyed her relationship with her most successful child. But she doesn't know how to admit she was wrong without losing face. That's her journey to figure out, I said. I'm not responsible for managing her feelings anymore. Rebecca nodded. Dr. Chen, my therapist, says the same thing. We can't heal relationships by ourselves. Everyone has to do their own work. Over the following months, Rebecca and I slowly rebuilt our sisterly relationship. It wasn't the same as it had been. Too much had happened for us to go back to our old dynamic. But it was healthier. We were relating to each other as adults who chose to be in each other's lives, not as people trapped in childhood roles. She started coming to some of my work events. I went to one of her art shows. We developed inside jokes and started texting regularly. When Michael proposed to me on a weekend trip to wine country, Rebecca was one of the first people I called. I'm so happy for you, she said, crying happy tears over FaceTime. He's perfect for you. He sees how amazing you are. You can be in the wedding, I told her, if you want to. I would love that, but Sarah. Yeah. I want you to have the wedding you want with the people who truly support you. Don't include anyone out of obligation, even family. You've earned the right to have your day be exactly what you want it to be. It was such a complete reversal from the graduation situation that it took my breath away. My sister was actively protecting my happiness instead of demanding accommodation for other people's comfort. My wedding, 8 months later, was exactly what I wanted it to be. My chosen family was there in full force. Jake was Michael's best man. Lisa was my maid of honor. David walked me down the aisle since he'd become like a father figure to me. Rebecca was a bridesmaid, and Dad was there with tears in his eyes. Mom came too, though she struggled through the whole event. She made several comments about how fancy everything was and how she hoped I wasn't putting on airs. But Dad shut her down each time, which was progress for him. Marcus didn't come. I'd sent him an invitation because Rebecca asked me to, but he never responded. His pride still couldn't handle my success, and I'd stopped feeling guilty about that. Uncle Mike gave a toast that surprised everyone. To Sarah, who taught us all that sometimes loving someone means letting them go, and sometimes it means fighting to earn them back. You never gave up on yourself, even when it would have been easier to do so. The most meaningful moment came during the reception when Dr. Martinez, whom I'd invited because she'd been so instrumental in my transformation, pulled me aside. Do you remember what you said to me 3 years ago when you first came to therapy? She asked. That I didn't understand why I always felt so lonely even when I was surrounded by family. You said you felt like you were performing for an audience that would never applaud. Look around you tonight. I looked around the reception, at Michael spinning Lisa on the dance floor, at Jake and David deep in conversation about baseball, at Rebecca helping my elderly neighbor to the dessert table, at Dad telling anyone who would listen about my latest work promotion. These people aren't just applauding, Dr. Martinez continued. They're celebrating you for exactly who you are. That's what you built when you chose yourself. A year after the wedding, I got promoted again, this time to regional vice president, overseeing development across 3 states. The announcement came with a profile in a major business magazine about young leaders in real estate development. When the magazine came out, Dad bought 20 copies and handed them out to everyone at his coffee shop hangout. Rebecca framed the article and hung it in her therapy office. Even Mom, in her complicated way, mentioned to her book club that her daughter was doing well in business. But the response that meant the most came from an unexpected source, a letter from Marcus. Sarah, it read, I saw your article in Business Weekly. I've been thinking about writing to you for months, and seeing your success highlighted like that finally pushed me to actually do it. I owe you an apology that's years overdue. I was threatened by your success because it highlighted my own failures. Instead of being proud of my sister and learning from your example, I let jealousy and ego convince me that your achievements somehow diminished mine. I wasn't there for your wedding, and I wasn't there for you during the family crisis. I let pride and embarrassment keep me from reaching out when I should have been celebrating and supporting you. I don't expect forgiveness, and I'm not asking for anything. I just want you to know that I'm proud of you, and I'm sorry it took me this long to say it. You're an incredible woman, and our family is better because of who you are, even if we didn't always act like it. If you're ever open to it, I'd like to try being your brother again, but I understand if that ship has sailed. Either way, congratulations on everything you've accomplished. You deserve every bit of success you've achieved. Love, Marcus. I cried when I read it. Not because I needed his approval, but because it represented the final piece of my family, acknowledging the truth of what had happened and taking responsibility for their part in it. I wrote him back a week later, suggesting coffee. We met on a Saturday morning at the same cafe where Rebecca and I had started rebuilding our relationship. He looked older, more weathered by his business failure and bankruptcy, but there was also a humility in him that I'd never seen before. I was angry at you for years, he admitted. Not because of anything you did, but because your success made my failures more obvious. Dad always compared us, and I felt like I was losing. Dad compared us all the time. Why can't you be more like Sarah? Sarah manages her money better. Sarah works harder. Sarah doesn't ask for handouts. It made me resent you instead of motivating me. This was a perspective I'd never considered. I thought I was the invisible child, but apparently Dad had been holding me up as an example in ways that hurt Marcus. I'm sorry Dad did that, I said. Comparisons never help anyone. That's not your fault, and I should have talked to you about it instead of letting it poison our relationship. We spent 2 hours talking through years of misunderstandings and resentments. Like with Rebecca, it wasn't a magic fix, but it was a beginning. Marcus started coming to family dinners when Dad organized them. He and Rebecca were both working to rebuild their lives, she with her growing therapy practice, he with a new job in project management. We weren't close the way we'd never really been close, but we were family in a way that felt healthier than before. 2 years after my second promotion, Michael and I bought our dream house, a beautiful colonial with a wraparound porch and room for the children we were planning to have. We hosted Thanksgiving for the first time, inviting our chosen family and any biological family members who had proven they could treat us with respect. Dad came and spent the afternoon telling Michael embarrassing stories about my childhood while I pretended to be mortified but was actually delighted. Rebecca brought her new boyfriend, a kind man who worked as a social worker and understood family trauma. Marcus came with his girlfriend and seemed genuinely happy for the first time in years. Mom came too, though she spent most of the time making passive-aggressive comments about how formal everything was. But when she thought no one was looking, I caught her taking pictures of the house and the dinner table, and later I saw her showing the photos to her sister on the phone, pride evident in her voice despite her complaints. As we all sat around the dinner table, I looked at the mix of chosen family and biological family, at the people who had earned their place in my life through consistent love and support, and I felt overwhelmed with gratitude. I'd like to make a toast, I said, standing up with my wine glass. To family, both the one we're born into and the one we choose. To the people who celebrate our successes instead of resenting them. To the courage it takes to set boundaries and the wisdom to know our worth. And to second chances for those who are willing to do the work to earn them. To Sarah, Jake called out, for teaching us all what it looks like to choose yourself. To chosen family, Lisa added. To boundaries, Rebecca said with a grin, echoing that long-ago campfire toast. To growth, Marcus said quietly, looking directly at me. To my daughter, Dad said with tears in his eyes, who never gave up on becoming who she was meant to be. Even Mom raised her glass, though she just mumbled something about family being family. That night, as Michael and I cleaned up the dishes, he asked me the same question he'd asked after my promotion party. Any regrets? I thought about it as I dried a wine glass, looking out the window at our beautiful yard where we'd hung string lights and set up a fire pit. You know what's funny? I said. If my family hadn't uninvited me from Rebecca's graduation, I might never have learned to stand up for myself. That rejection forced me to examine the relationship patterns I'd accepted my whole life. So no regrets. None. That graduation was the beginning of me finding my real family, the people in this house tonight who love me for who I am, not what I can do for them. Everything good in my life stems from that moment when I decided I deserved better. I looked around our kitchen, at the photos on the refrigerator from our wedding and various adventures with friends, at the business awards on the shelf, at the life we'd built together. The best revenge isn't getting even, I continued. It's living so well that the people who tried to diminish you end up wanting to be part of your life again. But by then, you've learned the difference between people who love you and people who need you. And now you have both, Michael said, kissing my forehead. Now I have both, but I know the difference. And I'll never again mistake need for love or obligation for family. As I turned off the lights and headed upstairs, I thought about that scared, hurt woman who had been uninvited from her sister's graduation. She couldn't have imagined that rejection would lead to this life, surrounded by people who saw her worth and celebrated her success. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is being rejected by people who never deserved you in the first place. It forces you to find the ones who do. For anyone watching this who's struggling with family dysfunction, who's been made to feel like you're too much or not enough, who's been excluded or diminished by people who should love you unconditionally, I want you to know that you deserve better. You deserve to be celebrated, not tolerated. You deserve to be supported, not used. And sometimes, the family you choose is more loyal than the one you were born into. Don't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Don't make yourself smaller to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. Find your people, set your boundaries, and never apologize for becoming everything you were meant to be. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories about finding your worth and building the life you deserve. And let me know in the comments, where are you watching from, and what's your chosen family story? Remember, you are not responsible for other people's comfort with your growth. Shine anyway.